The owner of a shop helped a poor girl pick up the change that fell to the floor. He then noticed a familiar bracelet on her wrist and nearly fainted. Valentina moved quickly through her Aunt Miriam's spacious house, where she had been living out of charity for some time, located in a quiet neighborhood in Guadalajara. Her calloused hands moved from one place to another as she meticulously cleaned every corner, every piece of furniture. Taking a deep breath, she approached Miriam, who was sitting on the sofa, listlessly flipping through a magazine. "Aunt, I'm sorry I'm a bit late today. We had an issue with a coffee machine at work, and my bus was delayed. I'm worried I won't be able to finish cleaning everything today." Valentina began hesitantly, her gaze dropping to her own rough hands. Miriam looked up from the magazine, fixing her gaze on Valentina with an expression that mixed irritation and disdain. "And what if the bus was late? Do you think that's an excuse not to finish your daily chores around the house?" Miriam replied, her voice laden with impatience. Valentina felt the weight of that look, a constant reminder of her position in that house. "Aunt, do you think Romina and Alicia could help me a little? If they could, I would be able to clean the house faster," Valentina suggested almost in a whisper, hopeful of sharing the burden she felt weighing on her shoulders. The mention of her daughters seemed to ignite an even more intense spark of irritation in Miriam. Miriam let out a sarcastic laugh. "You should be grateful to have a roof over your head, Valentina. Since your parents died, we've taken you into this house. Cleaning and maintaining everything in order is the least you can do to repay us. The money you bring from the cafe barely covers the food you consume here, which is quite a lot," she snapped, each word hitting Valentina like a blow to the stomach. Valentina felt the tears well up in her eyes, the injustice of the situation stifling her. "I'm trying, Aunt. I really am. When I feel anxious, I end up eating more, but I'm trying to control it," she managed to say, her voice trembling with contained emotion. "Since my parents' accident, I'm still trying to find myself again. It's very hard. I miss them so much, like there's a void in my chest. And Romina and Alicia don't make it any easier. They treat me more like an intruder than part of the family and constantly belittle me, my appearance, how I do things." Miriam's response was sharp, her fury now fully ignited. "I won't allow you to speak that way about my daughters. Romina and Alicia are dedicated students. They don't have time for household chores because they are focused on their studies. Maybe if you had the ability to follow an academic path, you wouldn't be here complaining about your situation," she retorted, contempt coloring every word. Valentina stepped back, her aunt's words hitting her hard. The room spun around her, the reality of her situation sinking in. Trapped in a house where she felt unloved, judged for her appearance and choices, her internal struggle invisible to the one who should support her. "I just wanted a bit of understanding," she whispered to herself, more to the walls that seemed to close in on her than to her aunt, who had already turned her attention back to the magazine, indifferent to Valentina. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the meticulously arranged table by Valentina. She moved between the stove and the counter, finishing the last touches of breakfast when Romina and Alicia entered. Their presence immediately imposed an air of superiority that filled the kitchen. The branded bags hanging from their shoulders swung like trophies of a status unreachable for Valentina, their steps resonating on the tiled floor with unwavering confidence. Romina, with a smile barely concealing her disdain, was the first to break the silence. "So, Valentina, we heard you decided to complain about us to Mum. You really are even dumber than we thought. Did you really think your appearance was the only thing you were limited in?" she mocked, crossing her arms as she looked at Valentina with a gaze dripping with arrogance. Alicia, not wanting to be left out, joined in with a stifled laugh. "And Mom would never side with you over us. After all, we're exemplary students studying dentistry. We don't eat like you do, and let's be honest, we're much more beautiful, she said, twirling a lock of hair between her fingers, a smug smile playing on her lips. Valentina felt each word like a blow, straight to the heart, a humiliation added to the emotional burden she was already carrying. "It's not like that," she began, her voice trembling as she tried to steady herself. "I'm just tired from doing all the house chores alone. I wish we could be friends. I know I'm not on the same level as you, and I eat compulsively because I lost my parents recently. I feel so sad. It's not envy. I just wish you wouldn't be so mean to me," Valentina confessed, her words loaded with raw vulnerability. Romina burst into laughter, her expression filled with incredulity. "Oh, Valentina, stop making drama with that story about losing your parents in an accident. We get it. Look at the bright side. Look at this wonderful kitchen you're in. You lost everything, and yet we still have to put up with you here." "You're so ungrateful," she said, dismissing Valentina's emotions as if they were nothing. Her lack of empathy stood as an unbreachable wall between them. Valentina looked at them, trying to find any sign of compassion, but what she saw only reinforced the loneliness she felt. Their coldness was a constant reminder of the chasm that separated them. Valentina walked into the cafe, where she worked during the day with a heavy expression, each step seeming to require enormous effort. Her eyes bore the weight of a world collapsing on her shoulders. Rossi, noticing the gloomy atmosphere surrounding her, left her spot at the register to approach her friend. "Valentina, you look so sad. Is everything okay? Did they do something mean to you again?" Her concern was palpable, her attentive gaze trying to decipher the silent signs of her friend's suffering. Valentina forced a fragile smile, a vain attempt to conceal her pain. "I'm fine, Rossi. Just a bit tired, that's all." But her words sounded hollow, unable to mask the truth that her eyes revealed. Rossi, knowing Valentina better than she would like to admit, decided to change her approach. "How about we go out a bit after work? Some fresh air, seeing other people? Who knows, we might even meet an interesting guy," Rossi suggested, a hopeful gleam in her eyes. Valentina, however, recoiled at the idea, her insecurity forming a lump in her throat. "Oh, Rossi, what guy would be interested in me? No one even looks at me, and I can't after work. I have to rush home and leave everything spotless before the girls return from the university clinic. If not, my aunt will get angry with me." Rossi sighed, her frustration mixed with determination. "Valentina, you need to stop underestimating yourself. Just because you're overweight doesn't mean you don't have the right to fall in love. When you learn to love your own body and accept yourself, you'll see how people will start looking at you differently." Rossi took Valentina's hands, conveying through her touch the strength she needed. "You have to value yourself, Valentina. You're a beautiful, interesting, and intelligent woman with only 26 years and so much life ahead of you." Rossi spoke with a conviction that made Valentina question if there was indeed something in her that she hadn't yet seen. Rossi continued, her voice now softer but no less firm. "I know this toxic family environment is affecting you, but you can't let those cousins and your aunt destroy your self-esteem and your will to live." Valentina felt Rossi's words penetrate deeply, as if trying to reach that part of her that had been dormant for a long time. With tears in her eyes, Valentina finally let down her guard. "Thank you, Rossi. You're the only person I can count on since I lost my parents," she said, her voice full of sincerity, a testament to the bond they shared, a friendship that stood as a beacon in the storm that was Valentina's life. The afternoon dragged on slowly for Valentina. Each customer who walked through the cafe door brought with them the hope that the day would pass without incident. However, that hope vanished the moment Romina and Alicia, accompanied by a group of friends impeccably dressed in white from the university, entered the place. A cold shiver ran down Valentina's spine at the anticipation of the imminent humiliation her cousins would undoubtedly inflict on her. Approaching their table hesitantly, Valentina barely had time to offer a forced smile before Romina began her display of contempt. "Oh, look who's serving us! Isn't there a better option?" The laughter that followed cut Valentina more deeply than any word. Trying not to let it show outwardly, Valentina attempted to maintain her composure as Romina turned to her friends, introducing her not as a cousin, but as the girl who works at their house. "I hope she does a better job here than at home, because there she's completely lazy. I don't even know how she doesn't eat everything in the cafe," Romina said, her words dripping with venom. Valentina, fighting against the tide of emotions threatening to overwhelm her, took the orders without saying a word. Rossi watched from a distance, her eyes shooting sparks of reproach toward the cousins' table. But Valentina knew any intervention would only make things worse. She needed to handle this situation alone, as she always did. Returning with the orders, Valentina placed the coffees on the table with great care, trying to avoid any reason for further criticism. However, Alicia, eager for attention, quickly invented one. "Look at the state of this table. It's dirty. Valentina isn't careful at all," she announced, clearly aiming to provoke a reaction. Valentina, with a mix of confusion and defensiveness, responded quickly, "I cleaned the table before you arrived. Everything is clean. You don't need to worry." It was then that Alicia, in a theatrical gesture, spilled her coffee over the table, proclaiming, "Well, it's pretty dirty to me. Come on, girls, let's take our coffee elsewhere. We can't stay in a place with such limited service." The public humiliation, the baseless accusation, and now the intentionally created mess all made Valentina feel tears welling up, her dignity crushed. Rossi, witnessing the whole scene, hurried to Valentina, her expression a mix of anger and compassion. "Don't worry, Valentina. I'll help clean this up. Go to the bathroom and pull yourself together before the boss sees." Rossi's words, though offering some comfort, couldn't erase the pain and humiliation Valentina felt at that moment. As she walked away to seek refuge in the bathroom, Valentina wondered how much more of this emotional torment she could endure. In the solitary confinement of the bathroom, Valentina looked at her reflection in the mirror, an image that seemed to distort under the weight of her insecurities and pain. "Why me?" she asked herself, the words resonating like a mantra of her desolation. "Why my appearance? I am." The questions swirled in her mind, a whirlwind of doubts and sorrows that seemed to consume her. The humiliations at her aunt's house, the laughs and disdainful looks, every moment of contempt accumulated in her soul, forming a huge barrier between her and the world. Will I always be defined by cruel words and others' judgments? Do I deserve this life of constant rejection and pain? She searched for some hope in the mirror's reflection, some sign that her existence wasn't summed up by these bitter experiences. Tears ran freely down her face. Rossi entered the bathroom, her eyes immediately finding Valentina, whose dejected figure was reflected in the mirror, a whirlwind of painful emotions. Without hesitation, Rossi enveloped her in a tight hug, a simple gesture loaded with meaning. "It's going to be all right, Valentina," she murmured, her voice soft but firm, conveying a sense of security that Valentina hadn't felt in a long time. "I cleaned up the mess your cousin made. Don't let their cruelty affect you like this. They are empty inside, Valentina. They don't deserve a single one of your tears." Allowing herself to be comforted by the embrace, Valentina sobbed quietly, Rossi's words like a balm to her wounded soul. "I feel so alone, Rossi. I can't stand being treated like garbage anymore," she confessed, the words escaping between sobs. "All I do is clean and tidy up the house for them. I also dreamed of studying. It was what my parents wanted for me, but now even that is denied to me. All the money I earn, I have to give to my aunt because they say I eat too much. Rossi, holding Valentina's hands in hers, looked into her eyes, a mix of compassion and determination reflected in her gaze. I'm so sorry for all this, Valentina. I can only imagine how hard it is for you, but you're not alone, she affirmed, each word full of sincerity. My house is small and humble, but you'll always have a space there. You can sleep on the sofa until you find another job that pays more and a place of your own. What your aunt and cousins do to you is unjust, Valentina. They confine you and force you. Cannot reflect the person I am inside. Why did I have to lose my parents, the only people who loved me? Why do I have to give up all my money, do all the housework without any help or compensation? This borders on slavery. To me, it's clear that what they're doing is a crime, Rossi continued, her voice growing in intensity. Just because they let you sleep in their house doesn't make it acceptable. You need to free yourself from that situation, leave that house, and live your own life. Valentina, wiping away the tears that still insisted on falling, found in Rossi's eyes a safe harbor, a promise of better days. It's true, Rossi, everything you said. I never had the courage to stand up to my aunt, but if you really don't mind having me on your sofa, I'm going to leave. I can't take the humiliations anymore, Valentina declared, a new resolution shining in her eyes. The exchange between them was more than words of comfort. It was a silent pact of support and solidarity. For the first time in a long time, Valentina allowed herself to feel a spark of hope, the possibility of a new beginning far from the oppression and contempt of her cousins and aunt. You'll see, Valentina, it will be the start of a new life for you, away from all that suffering. You deserve something better, Rossi affirmed. That night, Valentina entered her small room, her heart beating at a frantic pace that seemed to echo off the bare walls, devoid of any decoration that made her feel at home. Even what little I can have, she limits, Valentina murmured to herself, a bitter smile tracing her lips as she realized the irony of packing her few possessions in supermarket bags. There were no suitcases, no luxuries, just the harsh reality of a life reduced to essentials. As she folded each piece of clothing, a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions flooded her. This is enough. No more belittling me, no more living under the shadow of their humiliations, she thought, while carefully packing her few belongings into the bags. She gently placed a bracelet she had received from her parents when she was a child, one she had resized several times to fit her arm, but now rarely wore out of fear of losing her only connection to them. Finally, with her few clothes organized, Valentina took a deep breath, rehearsing the confrontation in her mind. She walked to the living room where she found her Aunt Miriam in her usual carefree pose, immersed in one of her elegant magazines, with a cup of tea beside her. The scene, so common, now seemed charged with a different meaning, like the anticipation of a storm. Standing in front of Miriam, Valentina felt her heart race, but Rossi's words echoed in her mind, strengthening her. Aunt, I have decided to leave this house, she began, her voice firmer than she expected. I can't bear any more humiliation and unjust work. I do everything in this house besides contributing what little I earn at the cafe. And yet I am constantly humiliated by Romina and Alicia. I am devastated by the absence of my parents, and I still have to deal with this. Miriam looked at her with a mix of anger and arrogance, her voice tinged with aggression. Who do you think you are, Valentina? A worthless girl, that's what you are. How do you think you can leave the house without telling me? How am I supposed to have time to hire someone to clean? You just want to complicate our lives because yours has no peace. She spat out each word like a sharp blade. You're just like your mother. My sister was always weak. I had to handle everything. Even the fact that she couldn't have children fell on me. And what do I get in return? She dies with that foolish husband and leaves me with you, an ungrateful brat. Valentina trembled at the revelation, her aunt's words piercing her clarity. What do you mean she couldn't have children? I'm here, and I'm her daughter, she asked, her voice trembling not only from the accusation, but from the sudden doubt about her own origins. Miriam, realizing her slip, tried to backtrack, her face a mask of consternation mixed with panic at having revealed too much. "You misunderstood, Valentina. Don't be silly. Of course, your mother could have children. She had you." The attempt at correction sounded weak even to her, leaving Valentina confused but determined not to let this new uncertainty derail her purpose. Valentina looked at her aunt with a mix of indignation and sadness, her words filled with a strength she had not known she possessed. "You can humiliate me all you want, talk about my appearance, or say that I don't work hard enough," she began, her voice firm despite the emotional tremor. "But I won't allow you to tarnish the image of my parents. They were good people. If you want to be mean to me, that's fine. I understand that now, but don't speak ill of my parents. I won't accept that. I'm leaving this house." Miriam's reaction was instant. Her expression hardened, a hint of panic showing as she realized Valentina was serious about leaving. The idea of losing the free labor, Valentina, who cleaned, cooked, and kept the house spotless, prompted her to act impulsively. With a shrill scream, she called out for Alicia and Romina, clutching her chest and feigning a heart attack with the skill of an actress. Alicia and Romina rushed to their mother's side, finding her gasping on the sofa. Amid groans of pain, Miriam accused Valentina of causing her potential heart attack, saying, She attacked me." Valentina, scared by the sudden turn of events and concerned for her aunt's health despite everything, ran to call an ambulance, her heart torn between anger and worry. At the hospital, while Miriam was receiving care and already seemed much better, Valentina sat alone in the corridor. Her prayers to God mingled with anxiety that she hadn't actually caused her aunt any harm. It was then that Romina approached, her accusatory gaze piercing Valentina. "What did you do to our mother, Valentina? What kind of monster makes her own aunt have a heart attack?" The accusation was unjust, and Valentina knew it, but the pain in her heart was real. "I did nothing, I swear. I just said I was leaving the house because I couldn't bear the humiliations anymore," Valentina tried to explain, the words tumbling out in her urgency to be understood. But Alicia quickly intervened, her voice laden with disdain. "And how dare you do that after everything we've given you? You caused our mum's heart attack, and now you'll have to stay and take care of the house because we'll be busy taking care of her after the damage you caused." The weight of those words fell heavily on Valentina. Valentina felt the weight of her situation like a sentence, trapping her in a cycle of guilt and obligation. "All right, I'll stay. I'll take care of the house. You don't have to worry," she conceded, defeated, a sense of helplessness enveloping her like a dense fog. The promise of freedom she had felt hours earlier now seemed distant, an ephemeral dream in the face of her reality. In the weeks following the hospital incident, Valentina's life became a center of constant humiliations and an even heavier workload. The unjust guilt placed on her for her aunt's near heart attack served as a justification for more responsibilities to be piled onto her already overburdened shoulders. On one particularly difficult day, when the feeling of helplessness and desolation completely consumed her, Valentina sought a small comfort in a bracelet given to her by her parents during her childhood. It was a tangible link to a past where love and protection were unquestionable realities, not just distant memories. Feeling the weight and texture of the bracelet on her wrist, Valentina allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. She knelt, the cold floor contrasting with the warmth of the tears that began to flow freely down her face. "God," she began, her voice choked with emotion, "I feel so alone in this world. I don't understand why they just want to take advantage of me, use me until I have nothing left to offer. I'm nothing more than labor to them." She clutched the bracelet to her chest, as if trying to channel the strength of her parents through the simple object. "I just wanted to have a normal life. You know, a life where people treat me with kindness and respect, not like a doormat for everyone to step on. I know I have to be strong, that I must fight, but it's getting harder to believe that things can change. The tears flowed without restraint now, each drop carrying the weight of her pains and disappointments. Please give me a sign that I can have a happy life, that it's not too much to ask, to dream of a future where I can be truly free and loved for who I am. I don't know if I can go on without your help. Valentina closed her eyes, seeking in her faith the strength to continue. I need your guidance, your light. Please show me the way. Help me find the exit from this darkness that seems to swallow me. I surrender to you, trusting that somehow you will guide my steps out of this suffering. At the end of her prayer, Valentina remained kneeling, the silence around her offering a stark contrast to the storm of emotions within her. The bracelet on her wrist, now wet from her tears, served as a reminder that despite everything, she was not completely alone. The next day, while Valentina was working at the cafe, still mulling over the thoughts and prayers from the night before, her routine was gently interrupted by a customer, Mr. Ramirez. His kindness was a refreshing breeze amidst the daily humiliations Valentina faced. When she approached to hand him the bill, he expressed his satisfaction with a warm smile. I loved the coffee, the cake was excellent, and the service definitely deserves praise. Valentina, surprised and grateful for such a sincere compliment, smiled back, feeling a wave of relief and momentary happiness. Noticing the impact of his words, Mr. Ramirez continued explaining his presence in the area. You know, I own the jewelry store right next to this cafe, he began, a proud glint in his eyes. Valentina nodded, recognizing the store for its elegance and the dazzling pieces she had often admired from a distance. I haven't been around much lately. I was focused on another store I have closer to downtown, but now I've left that one in the hands of a trusted employee, and I intend to spend more time at this store, exploring expansion possibilities in the region. The enthusiasm in his voice was palpable, as was the pleasure of finding such a good cafe nearby. I'll definitely be back more often, he promised, a nostalgic smile completing his expression. Valentina, impressed and flattered by Mr. Ramirez's openness, couldn't help but express her admiration for his store and the work he did. I've seen your jewelry store. Everything looks very elegant. Congratulations on the quality of everything I've seen in the window. As they conversed, Mr. Ramirez opened up more about his life, touching on more personal topics with surprising frankness. My wife and I shared a passion for jewelry. She was my greatest source of inspiration. His voice faltered, laden with raw emotion. Since she passed, I feel like my energy to create has simply vanished. She was the great love of my life. He paused, looking at Valentina with a thoughtful expression. And, you know, in some way you remind me of her. I imagine our daughter, if she were grown up, would be a lot like you. The unexpected comparison left Valentina speechless, an unusual but comforting feeling enveloping her. The mention of a daughter he imagined resembling her sparked a gentle, empathetic curiosity in Valentina. I don't know if I should ask, but did you lose your daughter? The delicate question opened a door to shared pain, a moment of vulnerability that Mr. Ramirez tried but failed to contain. I'm sorry, but it's hard for me to talk about this without getting emotional, Mr. Ramirez confessed, struggling to maintain his composure. I promise that another time I can share more about this. I intend to come back to the cafe often. As he stood up, ready to leave, Mr. Ramirez made sure to express his appreciation. I want to thank you for the excellent conversation and exceptional service, Valentina. I'll leave a good tip for you, he said, reaching for his wallet. Valentina, with a radiant smile, shook her head in disagreement. It's not necessary, really. "Your kindness has already made my day much better," she responded, her gratitude shining in her eyes. But Mr. Ramirez insisted, a friendly smile framing his face. "I insist. It's the least I can do to show my gratitude." As he tried to place the money on the table, an unexpected breeze swept through the cafe, scattering the bills on the floor. Valentina quickly bent down to collect the money, and Mr. Ramirez joined her to help. In the midst of the gesture, his hand found Valentina's wrist, where the bracelet given by her parents gleamed. He froze, his attention entirely captured by the small object. Valentina, noticing the sudden change in Mr. Ramirez's demeanor, gently pulled her arm away from his firm grip. "Is everything all right with you?" she asked, concerned by the pale and startled look he now directed at her. Visibly moved, Mr. Ramirez abruptly sat down on the cafe floor, passing his hands over his eyes, as if trying to clear his vision or convince himself of the reality of the moment. "That bracelet, is it yours? Where did you get it?" His voice trembled with an urgency that Valentina had never seen before. "Please, it's very important. Did you buy that bracelet from someone?" Helping him up, Valentina felt confused by the intensity of his reaction. "No, I didn't buy it. I've had this bracelet since I was a child. It was a gift from my parents, who have since passed away," she explained, trying to understand why he was so distressed. "But why were you so startled? Why would my bracelet be a problem?" Mr. Ramirez's gaze softened, but the sadness remained. "For a moment, I thought it was the bracelet that my wife and I made for our daughter. She was kidnapped when she was still a baby," he revealed, the pain of the loss evident in every word. The revelation left Valentina visibly shocked, and she quickly offered her condolences. "I'm so sorry for what happened to your daughter. That's truly tragic," she said, her voice laden with empathy. Trying to ease the tension of the moment, she added, "Perhaps the similarity between the bracelets is just a coincidence. It's remarkable, but there must be many similar bracelets out there." Mr. Ramirez, still visibly moved by the whirlwind of emotions triggered by the sight of the bracelet, gave Valentina a look filled with sorrow. "May I ask you a question without offending you?" He hesitated, searching Valentina's features for any sign of permission. Though confused by the unexpected turn in the conversation, Valentina nodded. "Sure, you can ask," she responded, curious and slightly apprehensive about the gravity she perceived in his demeanor. With a deep sigh, Mr. Ramirez looked at Valentina, his eyes searching hers. "Are you completely sure that you are your parents' biological daughter?" The question, so out of place and loaded with implications, took Valentina completely by surprise. "What are you trying to insinuate with that?" Valentina replied, incredulity tinting her voice with defiance. "Yes, of course, I'm sure I'm their daughter. What a strange question." Valentina's confusion quickly turned to frustration. She understood the pain and loss Mr. Ramirez had endured, but his insinuation was too much. Despite apologizing, Mr. Ramirez continued, unable to suppress the strength of the doubt consuming him. "Do you have photos with your parents from when you were a baby? Do you have clear memories of your childhood?" His voice was low, almost as if he feared the answer. Valentina felt a wave of irritation growing inside her. His questions, though perhaps driven by understandable desperation, touched the honor of her parents' memory. "Who does he think he is?" she wondered internally, struggling to maintain her composure. "My parents aren't kidnappers," she wanted to say, but the words got stuck in her throat. "You're very mistaken, and I don't like where this conversation is going," Valentina said, her voice firm, drawing a clear line that she wouldn't allow to be crossed. "I think it's best if you leave now, please." Her request was non-negotiable, a boundary set to protect the integrity of her family and herself. Mr. Ramirez, realizing he had gone too far, stepped back. "Of course, I understand. I apologize for all the questions. Something in my heart was touched in a way I didn't expect, he murmured before saying goodbye and leaving the cafe, leaving behind a silence filled with unanswered questions and a Valentina deep in reflection about her own history. Night had fallen when Valentina returned to her aunt's house, but the darkness outside couldn't compare to the turmoil of thoughts consuming her. Mr. Ramirez's comments, initially dismissed as absurd, had planted seeds of doubt that now grew uncontrollably in her mind. Alone in her room, Valentina murmured to herself, an internal battle reflected in her words. Could I have been so naive? I believe in my parents' character and goodness, but now, after what Mr. Ramirez said, I can't ignore it. My childhood memories are so blurry, so fragmented. She paused, her heart tight. And photos of me as a newborn from my first months. Why have I never seen any? How could I never have questioned that before? Driven by the need to clear these doubts, Valentina decided to approach the only person who might have the answers, her Aunt Miriam. Swallowing the lump of nervousness in her throat, Valentina approached her aunt with a trembling voice. Aunt, I was wondering, do you know if there are any photos of me from when I was a baby? It's strange, but I realized I've never seen any pictures of me with my parents from that time. Miriam's reaction was immediate and visibly irritated. Where did you get that idea now, Valentina? Can't I have a moment of peace in this house? It's always a new problem with you, her aunt replied, clearly annoyed by the line of questioning. Valentina struggling to keep her voice steady, Valentina began to explain. Today at the cafe, a man saw the bracelet I was wearing. He got startled and asked some questions about whether I was sure who my parents were. It was strange. It left me thinking for a moment. As Miriam listened to the story, her expression faltered, a shadow of surprise crossing her face before she quickly composed herself. Her voice carrying a touch of barely contained irritation, Miriam responded, "You're going crazy, Valentina. You should stop listening to nonsense from strangers. This must be the result of the amount of food you consume," she said with disdain. Abruptly rising, she turned towards Valentina's bracelet, grabbing it with enough force to break it. Tears welled up in Valentina's eyes as she watched the bracelet shatter, the last tangible link to her parents being destroyed before her eyes. "Please give it back. It's the only keepsake I have from my parents," she implored, her voice choked with pain and sudden loss. Miriam, however, remained inflexible, her decision marked by a coldness that seemed to cut deeper than physical aggression. "Enough of these problems, Valentina. I'm keeping this bracelet, and that's final," she declared, before walking away, leaving Valentina alone with her pain and a growing number of doubts about her identity and origins. In the days following that revealing encounter at the cafe, Valentina found herself under even greater pressure. Aunt Miriam tightened the rules, emphasizing that Valentina should avoid any contact with Mr. Ramirez. The atmosphere at home grew more oppressive with each passing day, suffocating Valentina with doubts and a forced silence about her origins. Confiding in Rossi, Valentina found a source of support and understanding. Rossi, with her usual frankness, looked Valentina directly in the eyes. "You need to seek answers, Valentina. Don't let fear or confused loyalty stop you from understanding your story. It won't do any harm," she said encouragingly, and continued addressing Valentina's concerns. "Look, you don't have to immediately think that your parents were kidnappers. If something happened, they might have been deceived too. You never know the whole story." Absorbing the calm and support that Rossi naturally radiated, Valentina found the necessary courage to share a deeper concern that tormented her. "Rossi, there's something I can't get out of my head. One day, my aunt accidentally let slip that my mother couldn't have children. She tried to correct herself quickly, but that comment has been hammering in my mind," Valentina confessed, her voice trembling, revealing the emotional turmoil caused by the revelation. "It seems crazy, I know, but I can't stop thinking about what it really means. You see, that's another reason why you need to talk to Mr. Ramirez urgently, Rossi insisted, volunteering to cover Valentina's shift at the cafe so she could go to the jewelry store and clear this up once and for all. With her heart heavy with uncertainty, but driven by the need to understand her own identity, Valentina entered Mr. Ramirez's jewelry store. Feeling a mix of embarrassment and nervousness, she began to recount her story to Mr. Ramirez. When I tried to talk to my aunt about the possibility of seeing photos of me as a baby, she reacted very strangely, even disproportionately. And one day, she accidentally mentioned something that left me quite disturbed. Valentina paused, searching for the right words. She said my mother couldn't have children, then tried to change the subject as if she had said too much. That left me confused. And now I'm here trying to understand what all this means, but I want to make it clear that I have no doubts about my parents' good nature. I'm not here because I doubt them in any way. They might have been deceived as well. Upon hearing Valentina, Mr. Ramirez's expression transformed, illuminated by a mix of hope and determination. We can do a DNA test, Valentina, whenever you're ready. Money is not an issue, he offered immediately, understanding the delicacy and urgency of the situation. Valentina, still processing the rapid pace at which things were unfolding, accepted, but with one condition. It has to be quick. My friend can cover for me at work, but my aunt mustn't even suspect that I'm talking to you. The decision was made, and although the future was uncertain, Valentina felt for the first time in a long while that she was on the path to uncovering the mystery of her own life. After leaving the DNA clinic, Mr. Ramirez's car glided smoothly through the streets until it stopped in front of the cafe where Valentina worked. Before she could get out, he turned to her, his gaze filled with a mix of expectation and serenity. Valentina, I want you to know that regardless of the test results, I am very happy to have met someone as strong and polite as you, he said, his words wrapped in genuine appreciation. Valentina, looking out the window, still trying to process the whirlwind of emotions and revelations from the past few hours, turned to him and replied, I'm still very confused with everything that has happened recently in my life, but I'm very grateful for everything you're doing. Mr. Ramirez nodded, understanding the significance of the moment for her. I completely understand, Valentina. As soon as we get the test results, I will let you know immediately, he promised. On a day like any other, while Valentina was cleaning tables at the cafe, the routine was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Mr. Ramirez. His face bathed in tears, anticipated the weight of the moment that was about to unfold. Without hesitation, he enveloped her in a tight embrace, his first words breaking the silence with the power of a long-awaited revelation. My daughter, my beloved little girl, I never lost hope, he began, his voice choked with emotion. I checked the test. I am your father, Valentina, or Anna, which was your name before you were taken from us. Rossi, witnessing the scene, couldn't contain her emotions. Oh my God, my friend, how do you feel? This is beautiful, she exclaimed, moved by the whirlwind of feelings that the revelation stirred. Valentina, completely overwhelmed by the shock, began to cry, the words escaping between sobs. Oh my God, how did this happen? So I was kidnapped. I'm not the daughter of the parents I loved so much. Someone deceived them. They would never have done this. The confusion and pain intertwined, forming a tight knot in her chest. Mr. Ramirez, trying to bring some comfort and explanation to the overwhelming situation, shared the painful story of the day Valentina, then just 3 years old, disappeared from their lives. We were at a park, and in a moment of distraction, just a few seconds, someone took you. Witnesses said it was a woman with other children, but the police could never discover who she was, Mr. Ramirez explained. showing photos and news articles on his phone about the tireless searches for his daughter. "You can see, my dear, we never gave up on you." The revelation that they had never lost hope brought a mix of pain and admiration to Valentina. "Unfortunately, your mother isn't here. I lost her to cancer not long ago, but she would be so happy to see you and know the wonderful woman you've become," Mr. Ramirez continued, memories of his wife bringing new tears to his eyes. Valentina, still processing the magnitude of this truth, found the strength amidst the storm of emotions to express a wish. "Anna is a beautiful name, but at least for now, I prefer to be called Valentina," she said, a decision reflecting both her need for time to assimilate her new reality and her connection to the identity she had known all her life. The suspicion that her aunt might be involved in the plot that diverted the course of her life cast a shadow over the revelation. "I want to get to the bottom of this. I suspect my aunt did this," Valentina declared, determined to uncover the last chapter of this story that had so disturbed her. Mr. Ramirez, hearing Valentina's suspicions about her aunt, didn't hesitate to offer his unconditional support. "If you believe that, I can hire the best lawyers. We'll talk to the police because this woman took something irreplaceable from us. Years of closeness and happiness with you, Valentina." His determination was palpable, a newly discovered father ready to move heaven and earth for justice for his daughter. Valentina, still processing the avalanche of emotions and revelations, felt a spark of hope ignite within her. "Yes, I want to resolve this. If my aunt was capable of such a monstrosity and humiliated me all this time, I can't accept it any longer. We need to do something," she affirmed, her voice gaining firmness as the decision solidified in her heart. Calling a lawyer friend, Mr. Ramirez sought guidance on the next steps. The lawyer explained that after so much time, the only way to incriminate Miriam would be through a direct confession. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to obtain any conviction. "It will be challenging," the professional outlined. It was then that Rossi, always ready with creative solutions, suggested a bold plan. Valentina could use a recorder to confront her aunt. If she is as explosive as she seems, she won't be able to handle the confrontation and will end up revealing everything. Rossi proposed this confidently, sure that the truth would come out under pressure. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I can take control of the situation. I want to do this for myself, for all the humiliations I've endured," Valentina shared, a new glimmer of determination in her eyes. The idea of finally confronting the source of her pain and uncertainty gave her a strength she never knew she had. Mr. Ramirez, moved by Valentina's bravery and resilience, offered to get a recorder as quickly as possible. "You can count on me, Valentina. Now you have your father by your side," he assured, reaffirming his commitment to support her every step of the way. Valentina, comforted and backed by her newly discovered support and love, felt ready to fight for justice. The next morning, with a recorder hidden in her bag, Valentina gathered strength by recalling every injustice and humiliation she had suffered at the hands of her aunt and cousins. It was time to act. Facing Miriam, Valentina adopted a defiant stance, a notable change that even her aunt noticed. "Going to work early, sweetheart? I hope you left breakfast ready for the girls," Miriam provoked. However, Valentina was not willing to yield or back down. "No, I didn't leave anything ready, and I'll never do anything for you or the horrible people you raised as your daughters," she responded with a strong and clear voice, marking the beginning of her rebellion. "Now that I know the whole truth, I did a DNA test with Mr. Ramirez from the jewelry store. I was kidnapped as a baby. I always knew you were a horrible person, but I never imagined you were a complete criminal. I haven't forgotten the phrase you let slip, that you had to solve your sister's problem because she couldn't have children. What are you trying to do now, crazy girl? Now that you found your daddy," the jewelry store owner, "you want to talk to me like this?" Miriam shouted before admitting the inadmissible. "Yes, girl, I kidnapped you. Your mother was a weakling who couldn't have children. I had to fix it myself because I couldn't stand all the drama anymore. So, I made up the story that you were left on my doorstep. But in reality, I saw you in a park with your distracted parents and decided it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. But now I see I made a huge mistake. Besides your uncontrollable eating, you're still a constant nuisance in my life." Miriam's words cut through the air. Valentina, through tears of pain and anger, vowed that Miriam would pay for everything she had done. "Enough! You will regret everything you did to me. You will go to jail, Miriam," she declared, her determination unwavering. Miriam, however, reacted by underestimating Valentina's threat. Poor girl, who's going to believe such a story so many years later? Fool, she laughed, underestimating her niece's resolve and the gravity of her own actions. Valentina, with the recorder still capturing every incriminating word from Miriam, left the house with a silent promise. "Just wait and see," she murmured to herself, determined that the truth would come to light no matter the obstacles. After a long legal battle, with the unwavering support of the lawyers hired by Mr. Ramirez and a meticulous police investigation, Miriam was finally tried and sentenced to a long prison term. The verdict not only brought relief and justice to Valentina, but also marked the beginning of a drastic change for Romina and Alicia. Without their mother's financial support, the sisters were forced to face the consequences of their actions and the harsh reality of life. With no money for tuition, they had to leave university and start working in domestic services, a twist of fate that confronted them with the struggles Valentina had faced for years. Meanwhile, Valentina's life changed in ways she could never have imagined. The dark cloud that had hung over her existence began to lift, giving way to a sky full of possibilities and happiness. On one of those bright days, during a conversation with Mr. Ramirez, he revealed a surprise for Valentina, something that symbolized not only his love and support, but also his belief in her abilities. With a smile that lit up his face, Ramirez announced that he had acquired the cafe chain where Valentina worked. "It's a gift for you, my dear. Now that you're studying business administration, you can transform this investment into something even greater," he said, his eyes shining with pride and affection. Overwhelmed by the surprise and gratitude, Valentina could barely find the words to express her happiness. It didn't take long for Valentina to reveal her plans to appoint Rossi as the cafe's manager, a decision that reflected not only their unbreakable friendship, but also the recognition of the support and loyalty Rossi had always shown her. "She is the perfect person for this," Valentina affirmed, confident that together they could take the business to new heights. With a smile that reflected a mix of nervousness and excitement, Valentina looked at Ramirez. "I have something to show you too, a surprise," she said. She gently took out her wallet and opened it, pulling out a document and extending it for him to see. "Look, I officially changed my name. Now I am Anna Valentina. I feel that this way I can honor everyone I love and loved, and also love myself, my body, and everything I am." Her words carried a deep meaning, marking the reconciliation of her personal history with the identity she always felt was truly hers. Ramirez, visibly moved by the revelation, embraced Valentina in a gesture full of love and tears. "I am so happy, my daughter. It took me so long to find you. All I want now is for your life to be filled with happiness from now on," he said, each word filled with sincerity and a deep wish for a bright future for Valentina. That moment, full of emotion and promises of a new beginning, sealed a painful chapter in Valentina's life, opening the way to a future filled with hope, success, and above all, love. If this story has captivated you, we invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is our greatest motivation to continue bringing you exciting stories almost every day. Stay tuned so you don't miss the next incredible story that will soon be available on your screen. We greatly value your support. See you soon.